Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Get Smart with Intelligent Testing and Improve Your Digital Transformation Journey. My name is Josh, and I will be your host today. Today's presenters are Andrew Morgan and Siva Anna. Andrew is the Director of Product Marketing at Infostretch. He is an experienced leader in strategic analysis, opportunity assessment, and roadmap execution. With his guidance and expertise, he has helped companies expand their digital initiatives to groundbreaking levels. Andrew has over 10 years of experience in working with a wide range of companies, including global automotive, pharmaceutical, and technology manufacturers. Additionally, he has directed development of market firsts such as life science applications, customer engagement programs, and predictive analytic platforms. Siva Anna is the VP of Quality Services here at Infostretch. He has more than 20 years of experience developing and managing QA strategies for Fortune 500 companies. In the 9 years with Infostretch, Mr. Anna has been instrumental in leading strategic enterprise engagements, which have resulted in significant value for clients such as Kaiser Permanente, The Body Shop, and Minted.com. Before joining Infostretch, Mr. Anna excelled as a technical project manager for both eBay and Cognizant, and also served as QA and automation strategy consultant for a large bank. And before we begin, let me review some housekeeping items. First, this webcast is being recorded and will be distributed via email to you later, allowing you to share it with your internal teams or watch again at your leisure. Second, your line is currently muted. And third, please feel free to submit any questions during the call by utilizing the chat function on the bottom of your screen. We will answer all questions towards the end of the presentation. We will do our best to keep within the 45-minute time allotment. And at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Andrew.
Thank you, Josh. And thank you also, Siva, and everyone on the call for joining us today. I just wanted a quick agenda in terms of what we'll cover today, make sure it aligns with everything that you're expecting to see, and really cover everything that you need to know to go forward to make sure that your testing lifecycle and quality processes are capable of incorporating the latest and greatest technologies. So we'll cover why intelligent testing, what intelligent testing is, and then intelligent testing in action, a great case study that we have, focusing on all the different stages that we can cover, and as well as implement for different organizations, and then how we implement intelligent testing. So why intelligent testing? This gives you some insights into what we've seen within the marketplace. As you can see from the statistics above, consumers are really evolved in terms of their number of devices that they have. I know for myself, I have a phone, a tablet, 2 computers, and at least 3 different monitors that I'll watch different entertainment programs on. Well, companies that are seeing a streamlined strategy and integration with their technology across these different platforms are actually seeing a 91% greater year-over-year retention of their customers.
There is a message. You're not able to see anything on the screen.
Oh, are we not able to see anything? Oh, 1 second. New share. Let's see. We're good to go now? Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone for the technical difficulties. We'll make sure to send a RFP to Zoom so we can assist them with their technology. But as you can see here, the organizations that are really adopting this omni-channel strategy to have a seamless experience across all these consumer devices, from shopping on Amazon to then checking out on your desktop to seeing different curated content on your Amazon Prime channel, making sure that all of these strategies align with what your consumer is expecting and wants to do along your specific journey. Now, from on the flip side, these challenges are pushing a lot of pressure on the IT departments, on development, on testing, on operations. So these are some of the questions that our specific customers are asking us. Can we shift, or can they test better? Can they experience putting more priority on agility? Has operation costs been an ability or been highlighted more frequently during these expansions into these higher developed and new technologies? And then lastly, when we talk about data as well as the improvement of UX and utilizing cloud services, it's really around adapting user interfaces. You think about Uber and Google Maps already has your predetermined destinations based off of where you are in a location and what you've most recently or most commonly used. I see it all the time when I travel to my favorite destinations. It pops up. Do you want to go to this hotel? Do you want to go to this this restaurant? It's pretty impressive. But as you think about it from a development and testing standpoint, these UIs need to change in real time based off of each specific user's interaction and pattern and what they're attempting to do with the application. So how do we build that testing suite? How do we automate these testing procedures to account for those different testing components? Now, as we go into an example here, let's look at a great UX. Great application which has great UX, but what does this really mean for testing? As you think about a pharmaceutical application that uses biometric identification to open up an application and then uses the camera feature to launch a augmented reality capability in a prescription bottle or prescription pack, and then has the patient's ability to reorder a prescription or submit side effects or be able to communicate with the doctor. Well, that's great for UX, great for the consumer. It's very user friendly. However, from a testing side, there's a lot of components at that API and unit level that we really need to address. Talking about electronic medical records, shipping, point of sale, and then even the inventory adjusters as well as doctor authorization. These are all different personas within this life cycle that need to be able to use this platform effectively, and we have to be able to test and automate the entire processes to make sure that it's working just right, just for them. Because as you know, it's not just about whether it works correctly, but making sure it works correctly for its intended user. And then when we have all the different types of data that are then shifting then again, these types of repositories from the doctor authorization to the EMRs need to be able to update that immediately. So here's some of the testing challenges we hear when companies try to take these agile initiatives to market. As you can see, the time to market has really decreased substantially in the last few years. Even today, we're seeing at about 60% enterprises want to deploy a new build daily, while 26% want to do so hourly. And what we've really seen, and Siva can maybe help me out a little bit on this if he has any specific examples, in requirements management, automation, test environment, and test data, these are big deterrents on getting these new deliverables to market or developing and testing within the agile methodology. So as you can see here, we have some business and operational impacts around the confidence and quality, as well as ability to prioritize the specific testing suite. And we talk about, as you'll see later, risk-based testing and how this all brings together a higher total cost if we're not able to adjust accordingly per the information and per the requirements based off of the business objectives and development. And anything else, Siva?
No, I think.
Okay. So now let's get into the meat of it, what you guys are really here for. As we talk about intelligent testing, it's really about the strategy of testing and aligning it to what it is we're trying to achieve. What you'll see here is that, testing has really evolved, addressing quality, addressing agility, and addressing efficiency. And what we do is we really make sure that when we're going through the strategy of intelligent testing and mapping that back to your business requirements and the capabilities to deliver the best quality, efficiency, and agility within your organization. These are the questions that we're commonly asking our customers as we're figuring out how testing can be an enabler within their digital initiatives. Now, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but as you can see, it's really about understanding what it is we're trying to achieve, what the business value is, and what the metrics are to make sure that we can be successful in our operations. So then in terms of intelligent testing, and we talk about starting with those business objectives and that user experience, then moving on to what the requirements, use case, and UX expectation is. Now, from this component, we're able to automate some elements like functional and UI test cases. And then there's unit and API, which do take a little bit more skills to be able to automate those components, and it's not really a turnkey solution. Now, this leads straight into our creation phase, which is around a two-approach methodology that we can take. At the top, you can see our left to right approach, where we have model-based testing within an application, primarily within new applications being brought to market. We then add or then use ATD and BDD to automate that test case, and then layer on top of that auto test case generation and healing tools like Mabel and Functionize. So what we see here, and ATGH is just an acronym that we just randomly came up with because we were out of space. It doesn't necessarily mean it's in market or being adopted widespread, but from spatial reasons for this diagram specifically, wanted to speak to it rather than having a bunch of text. And then on the bottom, you see we have our right to left approach. So as you look at the creation phase above, we have our backlog, and that's when an application is already within the optimization process. So, or when it's already within the life cycle and it's being pushed live. So when we talk about the ability to optimize a test case or optimize test case repository, we need to be able to look at the entire coverage, the entire capabilities within that test repository. So as you look, we have a center ground that we start off with. And we actually have our own internal IP platform called Astute, and that's where we optimize, or we have different tools and accelerators that can leverage artificial intelligence to help you optimize these specific components within the testing cycle. So for Tobot, we use Tobot for this backlog analysis and optimization. Then we do a gap analysis with model-based testing, where we use tools like Hexawise to determine where we're at and where we need to add test cases to increase the coverage. Now, simultaneously, we can then add those same auto test case generation and healing tools on top of it. So as development's working on specific projects and able to bring the code and deliverable to market, we're not slowing them down with our optimization efforts. Now, this goes all into our continuous testing foundation. Our foundation is really around the fabric and the quality and understanding how we need to be set up from an environment standpoint to an infrastructure standpoint to be able to leverage all of the latest and greatest tools and technologies and web services to be able to get these deliverables to market. Something that's very interesting, I was on a call with one of our customers the other day, and they were talking about pulling one of their applications out of their existing architecture simply because it was an application they wanted to integrate chat features and functionalities, and they knew they needed to have a microservices component to be able to take into account the amount of data and changes that were going to be occurring within that application. So that's specifically where they were engaging with us, was around taking this application out of their existing architecture, implementing microservices to have the correct service virtualization, as well as testing components to make sure their application not only could get up and running faster, but ensure the quality as the development phases increase along the roadmap. Now, once we have all this capabilities in identifying the test cases, the componentization, being able to understand previous test runs of what has passed and what has failed, and then pushing that through and understanding where we can actually test everything more efficiently, effectively, we have that risk-based testing. And this is about either what features and functionalities change most often, what features and functionalities fail most often. These are two types of test cases that we want to make sure that we prioritize early in the process, in the execution phase, so that we're able to not waste time testing tests that we already know are going to pass. And then in that execution phase, we talk about the AUT environment provisioning. Now, this is really around where we see a lot of counterparts, really discussing of performance testing, security testing, functional testing. And there's two components here: omni-channel testing, like I talked about before, which we're seeing a big uptick in, and it's really almost a starting point with a lot of our conversations. And this unsolved testing, where it's really unsolved automation test cases. There's a couple good examples here that I can talk about. One is with a large national bank that we'll go over in our case study. But what we did specifically for a project was they had the take a picture, check deposit. What's it called, Siva? Deposit, automated check deposit, automated check deposit. It's a tongue twister for me, I guess. So what that is, I'm sure you guys have seen it or used it, where you take a picture of a check with your bank application, and then it automatically deposits that into your account. Well, that's great, but how do we make sure that that's actually can be automated within the cycle? So what we actually did is we took I believe a studio grade camera and set up a hardware component to be able to take that picture automatically as the cycle was running through. And so then once we set up that hardware component to do it without manual intervention, we were able to do a software layer where it actually pulled the image from one of our test libraries, and it thought to mock the action of taking a picture. So now it's all done behind the scenes without using that camera anymore. So that's some of the examples of unsolved testing. We also did one for a medical device company where they need to measure the sweat glands on a person. So we actually created an entire lab that was able to provide a simulation of that activity. And then now that we've been able to automate a lot of these processes, just like with any other process you automate, you have the ability to extract data. Anything that you do manually, it's harder to measure unless you're tracking down exactly what you're doing when you're doing it manually. When you automate, now you have the power of computers to be able to instantaneously track what it is that we're doing, what the results are, and then able to provide us the capability to analyze the efficiency and effectiveness of those activities. So as you can see, there's 4 components we have within our analyze phase: the auto result analysis, automated test acceptance, dynamic page test profiling, and then visual verification. Now, these are all components where we're actually testing and assuring the quality of the test cases that are being ran, whether they're passing, as well as the code as we're running through to making sure that the test code is up to standard. So it's not impacting the results as well. Now, this analysis now circles back through into provide intelligent test selection along with the risk-based testing. And so not only are we prioritizing based off of the historical component and our future insights into how the product is developing, but we're also able to test based off of what we're seeing within that automation code to make sure that we're able to provide the best possible results for our customers. And then lastly, we have our optimize phase. And this really creates a feedback loop into the business objective and consumer experience. What we do here is we take all of this information along with all of the external data that is vast out there, log analytics, app analytics, as you can see, and then production and app monitoring. Now this is around everything that is really done within the application in real time. What's happening in the real world? How do we incorporate that into our development and testing cycle? How do we account for those capabilities to make sure that we're providing not only the best product for our business goals, but also providing the best product for our consumers? And so there's tools out there that are starting to develop more maturity within this element. And what they do is they track users on specific components and are able to add that journey per se into the test case repository. And if it's not there, or if it is there, be able to elevate it as one of those priority test cases, saying this is the functionality or pathway that your consumers are using 80% of the time. So we want to make sure that it's a critical path that we're testing at the beginning of every process. And then we also add predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics on top of this feedback loop back into this intelligent testing. So this can predict and prescribe exactly where it is that we are within our testing maturity, and be able to give us some suggestions as well as predicting what is most likely to pass or fail, and at which level of confidence based off of the historical amount of data. Again, more data, more amount we'll be able to predict, and it's just one of those things where as we go and train these models, they become more and more accurate as we go. Now I'm going to pass it over to Siva, and he's going to talk about these specific components around intelligent testing and action, and give some real world examples on our expertise. And Siva, if you have any questions, I'm sure you can ask me, but I think you got it.
No, thanks. Hello everyone. So I'm kind of let me go back to the previous slide. I just want to kind of reiterate what Andrew talked about. Right, I think this is the intelligent testing life cycle that we see in the industry today. A lot of our customers do follow through this one. The one quick thing I would like to kind of point out, because some of my case study information that I'll be sharing in the subsequent slides will address that. It is for any customer, they can kind of pick and choose the specific area of optimization that they can kind of focus on that one, right? So in my case study also, I kind of divided this into 4 sections. Kind of one, I talk about the identification and creation as one key area. Then the fabric, which is kind of is the fundamental for the entire intelligent testing to work as a kind of a gluing component in terms of the test data or the environment, plus the execution and the optimization, right? So I kind of talk about my case study in these 4 sections. So just want to kind of give you the context that you can pick and choose your solutioning or the problem that you would like to solve in any of these sections, right? So so kind of talk about, so this is for one of the large national banks that we have been working for almost a decade. I've been kind of leading this engagement, and some of the data points that you will see today, it's been kind of getting in process or implemented over the years, right? It's not something that you kind of get it done in day one, and kind of this is a continuous improvement that we see on the processes or the automation that we do within any organization, right? So to begin with, I want to kind of focus on what we have achieved in the creation and the identification phase, right? So if you look at it, this is also, you will see the structure of this, the slides is divided into 3 categories. So what was the customer ask that we have seen? Like we have been working with them for almost a decade, right? So we continuously monitor and see how we can improve the overall process, right? And that's the key thing that we kind of documented here. I think as we hear, not only with this customer, but many customers, the time to market is the key thing, right? So we do see that the release cycle from the definition to the production, the release cycle has been kind of coming down dramatically. In this particular case, the need or the requirement was that, okay, they want to reduce the QA cycle or the entire release end-to-end release cycle from 8 weeks to 3 weeks, right? So how do you achieve? Agreed, there is some, the chunk of deployment is smaller, but imagine that you have to kind of go through the entire cycle, right, from business requirement documentation to user stories to writing the test cases to automation. It needs to happen within the 3-week cycle, right? So that's where somehow this intelligent testing is coming into a big play, because there are tools have matured, there are like products available that would help you to kind of identification of the test cases or the test scenarios a lot more automated, right? So it's not a manual process anymore. So we do see there are quite a few tools available that allows you to define test scenarios automatically by giving the requirements, either in the form of user stories or any other mechanism that you can pass it on to these tools, right? And what we saw was that, okay, the first thing that we continuously do is kind of baseline ourselves and see how do you kind of measure that you achieved a certain improvement that you're looking for, right? So in this particular case, the release SLA is one thing, but we also wanted to kind of make sure that we are improving the quality. We are not compromising in that process the overall quality. So the baselining the quality by looking at the various metrics, right, in terms of the productivity or in terms of the defect to production leakage metrics, all that kind of taken into consideration to identify what is the outcome that the client was looking for, right? So some of the metrics that you see on the right side is the actual data point that we were able to kind of produce and kind of validate with the customer in terms of the overall quality. 15% improvement is the big number that we have achieved in a very short time working with the customers in terms of in the recent release cycle, right? So this is primary data point that you see here is in 9 to 12 months period that we help the customer to reduce the release cycle from 8 weeks to 3 weeks. And these are all some of the metrics that you see are the outcome of that initiative, right? So this is more around the identification and the creation process. This includes both the functional and automation scenarios, right? So moving on, I think the core foundation for the intelligent testing is all around the fabric. So which is what kind of spans across the 3 or 4 core to automation, right? So the test data management, test environment management. In the recent past, we see service virtualization playing a critical role. So I think this slide is all about these 3 area, that what did we what was the problem that we've seen and what did we achieve as an outcome in this particular section, right? So I think the key ask from the customer was to kind of see how they can run the test scenarios for any application that are in development, right? So I think the service visualization was one of the key element that we saw that would help the customer, that they can start doing the development of the test scenarios, automation of those test scenarios, even during the application that are in development phase, right? So that was the key thing that we saw. I think the other thing that we see continuously across large enterprises is the test data management, right? So a lot of because of the legacy systems, and there are like a lot of system of records that you may or may not have an easy mechanism to kind of provision the data. We do see that having a centralized self-serving portal that allows the people to request the necessary data, and also you get to monitor whether the data is getting used effectively or not, right? So we have built portals for a few of our customers that help to kind of leverage the test data more effectively, right? So many times we do see a challenge that it was provisioned to a team, but they may or may not be using, or you don't have a mechanism to kind of measure whether the data is used correctly or not, right? So having a portal would help you to kind of not only automate the process of provisioning, both automation as well as the manual functional team can use that portal, but you also kind of validate the usage of it, or if any correction that needs to happen can happen automatically through the portal, right? The same thing we have built for the service virtualization also, because that's another key thing that we continue to see for a need for many customers, that okay, they want to kind of have a mechanism to enable or disable to run your test scenarios to the backend system, right? Because you don't want to be stopped, or you don't want to become as a bottleneck. Because there is no backend system, you should be able to run, or you should not be able to run. So depending on what is the strategy that is being applied in your organization, right? So moving along, I think the execution is another key area that we have seen a lot of tools and solutions available for this one. This is all around once the execution, because we do see because there is a lot of agile processes, there is a lot of test execution happens at say every check-in time, and some customers do execute on a nightly basis. So the execution frequency is much higher compared to where it was before 5 years, right? So we continue to see this as a problem. So as we generate a lot of execution, that indirectly or directly increases the workload on analyzing, right? And that's where a lot of innovation has happened, and the analyzing has kind of become an automated process that gives you an indication of what are the repeated failures that you see, so that you can fix only those things. And also you can prioritize, and there is a lot of AI-based learning happening. So the system or the backend analytics engine can learn the failures and kind of auto-suggest, and that is what we talk about self-healing, where it not only detects this is the problem, but also it comes with the recommendation. These are all the few things that can be done to improve, right? And this is one of the biggest challenge that we see in large enterprises, where there is a lot of test execution happen on a very frequent basis. And also we do see that having a centralized unified framework would reduce your test execution analysis, right? So having kind of a centralized framework, or having a uniform automation approach across the different layers would help you to kind of simplify or optimize the test execution, right? So the last section is about the optimization phase that Andrew talked about. And this is where I think a lot of innovation happened in the recent past, right? I think so far, some of the topics that we talked about in the creation or the environment provisioning or the execution, this has kind of evolved over the time. But the optimization is the phase that has kind of seen a lot of innovation in the last few years around what did we call it as the predictive and prescriptive QA, right? So in this area, what you see is that, I mean, customers are demanding, they want to have a high precision planning, which means that, okay, you have so much data available in the system, either in the form of Jira or ALM or any test management system has information, right, in terms of what was your trend in terms of the execution cycle, or in terms of the defect or the quality of the application. All that can be fed into these bots, what we call it as the bots, or some kind of a solution that helps you to kind of learn from that and start predict what is the potential, whether it's a resourcing need or the time need or infrastructure need. It can predict, and also it kind of prescribe based on the information that that is being fed into the system, right? So there's a lot of learning. This is where I think all the artificial intelligence and machine learning comes into handy. That helps you to kind of increase the overall outcome by which you can reduce your schedule variance or have a better usage of our team. Right. And to summarize, I think this is some of the key numbers so that I would like to highlight what we have achieved in this particular engagement, right? So the time to market is one of the key things that we continuously see because that's where the pressure in the industry today. And also having the maintenance because of multiple automation technologies being used, multiple solutions being adopted, there is inherently increased maintenance. So we have seen adopting a single unified framework as part of the automated or the intelligent approach helps you to kind of minimize the overall maintenance cost, right? So these are all the key benefits that we have achieved with this customer. We'll be more than happy to kind of share more specific questions that you might be having, but we continuously seeing adoption of this bots or intelligent testing approach in chunk, may not be as a whole. You will be able to kind of pick and choose the area that you are interested or what's the help that you are looking for. And these solutions would allow you to kind of achieve the outcome that you are looking for, right? So let me kind of hand it over to Andrew to kind of take it forward and share a few more information. Andrew?
Thank you, Siva. Yeah, it was great insights. So we'll just go over a couple different slides here. So, well, just one exactly. I forgot I had taken the other one out because I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to look at what we're talking about from really strategically driving outcomes and being able to, walk through kind of our complex maturity model with you guys specifically. So from the engagement process, what we do is we really look at, again, that quality and that ROI and understanding what it is, within your processes that is giving you the most challenges or, is causing the most headaches in terms of, your higher ups constantly pressuring you on specific elements. As you talked about cost, time, efficiency, what it is, that's really making your testing more effective. And then as we go into the testing tool strategy, we make sure to create a strong foundation, build the compelling business case for the stakeholder buy-in, and then as you can see, like I talked about, assessing against standard models to build that roadmap. That roadmap is really around creating that journey, so not only can you understand where you're going to be able to provide the most impact and enable business from a testing perspective, but also be able to communicate that upstream. And so everyone within your organization department understand exactly what you're doing to enable them. Talk about development and talk about data engineering, even operations, talking about how we're able to then enable these different organizations and be proponents within their departments. And what we do, just for a few examples, is we have some tools, some evaluations that we provide for our specific customers. And this is just one example. So in terms of the model-based testing, what we do is we really look at the specific challenges that are in the market, and then within that customer set, that environment. And then in terms from the solution, understanding what components are needed to make this most effective for that end result, that outcome. As you can see here, now we create a user flow in terms of what we're actually doing. That way, within this specific component, exactly what it is that we're addressing and what benefit that we're going to provide. Now, as you saw previously in the entire intelligent testing lifecycle, that there's lots of components to intelligent testing. Now, there's also lots of different tools out there for each one of those components. So I'm not going to spend the next 2 hours going through all the slides that we have around each component, each tool that we have or have evaluated in the market. But this just gives you an example of how we're going to present it to you to showcase what it is that you'll actually receive at the end result. And then lastly, this is an example of some of the components that we add. So as you see here, this kind of addresses the users within the lifecycle and the users and the components that are needed. And this addresses, what we need to do within, this need. And this one specifically for test data management, and then how and why the current situation is. So we're able to, clearly explain what needs to be done for each one of these users within and stakeholders within this specific user flow, and then the impact that they'll receive from this benefit. So as you can see, we do this not only for your users, but also from the standpoint of how we're going to implement this within your environment. So that slide we don't have, but that's more around our lead architects, our senior developers, around being able to make this solution work right for your environment.
Okay. Great, thanks, Steve and Andrew. And at this time, we would like to get your questions answered. It looks like we have a few more minutes to answer those questions. You can do that by submitting a question in the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Looks like we're getting a few questions submitted. Looks like our first one here is around, someone's asking about remind me, what does ATGH mean?
So that's auto test case generation and healing. It's just a way to condense that long term for that tool does. There's tools in the market like Mabel and Functionize that run on top of existing websites that are able to adjust test cases as development is actually updating the features and functionalities or UI and UX.
Okay. Got another question here around, there was a mention of test data management in terms of intelligent testing. What does this mean?
Sure, yeah, I'll answer to this question, Josh. So test data management, in short, TDM means having a kind of a defined approach for how do you handle the test data, right? Like I said, in my case study also, this was one of the critical problems that we solved. So TDM basically, it's a various levels of management techniques that you can apply, right? So whether you want to have a mechanism to kind of provision the data, or you want to kind of have a mechanism to kind of maintain and monitor the usage of the test data, right? I think the key thing is also having a self-serving portal is the key thing that would kind of simplify the whole test data management, right? And that's what we kind of mean here, the test data management.
Okay. Got a great question here around, so good question here. What is intelligent testing meant only for newly created test cases? In other words, can any of these techniques be used for the existing test case scenarios?
This is a great question. So let me answer to this one. So yes, I think the short answer is yes. You can use the intelligent testing both for existing test bed that you have, or you can use it for the newly generated to be created test scenarios. In fact, I think some of the customers that we are working today, we have an ongoing engagement that is where we are using a lot of bot. I think Andrew did mention about Tobot. It's basically the test case optimization tool. It allows you to kind of optimize the existing scenarios and also componentize so that you are able to kind of increase the reusability of the test scenarios, right? So what we have seen is by going through this process, you kind of reduce 25 to 30% of your test scenarios because of the redundancy in the test scenarios, or some of the test cases were not being executed or that is out of scope. So the bots like Tobot helps you to kind of optimize. So yes, you can use it for existing scenarios also. And it's both for automated scenarios as well as the functional scenarios, so that you can use some of these intelligent testing techniques to effectively reduce the overhead that you might have it today.
Okay. Got another question here. Someone's asking about that they would like to be, if you could cover the 3 key benefits around adopting intelligent testing.
Yeah, so I'll take this one. So just to give a quick answer, no specific order. The three that we often see is really around helps faster time to market. Really enables and accelerates what it is you're trying to achieve from a business standpoint and how many releases you're trying to make. Secondly, we talk about the reduction of dependency on highly trained technical skills. So this gives us the capability, like we talked about with that service virtualization portal, to utilize the latest and greatest tools and technologies without needing the latest and greatest skill sets to be able to make them effective for your organization. And lastly, obviously improved quality. If our products and our deliverables aren't up to standards and aren't improving their quality, then our consumers aren't going to enjoy their experience, and they're not going to spend time utilizing what we're offering. So those I'd say are the three.
Okay. Got another question here. It looks like we have a few more minutes to take questions. Question here from Robin around, so what constitutes intelligent testing? What I think she means, what is it made up of?
Yes, so really about the methodology and best practices, I would say. We've been doing a lot of these components in a lot of our customers, and what we did is, as we were seeing the digital drive of the product development and just organizations in general, and digitally being able to take in new technologies like Alexa, like augmented reality, like wearables. How do we account for the best testing practices within those initiatives of the organization? So what we've done across our longevity of being a digital first company is being able to really understand the best ways to make digital right from the first time, first initiative, from the first step. And that's what we really focus on, is being able to intelligently look at the test case and test lifecycle and understand how do we make it most impactful and most effective, not just simply receiving the order and making it happen, but making sure that we're actually enabling the success of the business.
Okay. Got another question here for you, Siva, from John. When doing end-to-end testing, and that today data has to be synced between upstream and downstream applications, what techniques can be used to break this dependency?
I think the key thing that comes to my mind is using some of the mocking services, or what we call it as a service virtualization, because that's where I think you would be able to kind of at least reduce the dependency to some extent, as much as that, so that you can split the dependency between the front end and the back end system. But I think that's one technique that you can use to make sure that you are able to kind of have the data sync happening between the front end systems and the back end systems.
And last question looks like we have time for is, someone's asking it, saying their application is primarily mobile. Does does intelligent testing apply to mobile platform as well?
Oh yes, definitely. It's great for mobile, especially with all the features and functionalities in mobile. You talk about Bluetooth, connectivity with near face communication. You talk about the camera, multiple cameras now on the phone, and not just one specific camera. How do you then integrate that with the predictive text and the other features and functionalities that need to be integrated with on the back end? So it's a great example of how to make mobile not only work, but work at its greatest potential.
Okay. And looks like we've got one more question that just slipped in from Matthew. So is your engagement model to come in with the methodology and drive through a particular work stream, i.e. a consulting engagement, or is there a particular toolkit that coexists with the current test automation and CI/CD in place at the client site?
The best way to answer that is there's not a specific toolkit, because depending on your environment and your needs and what you're really trying to achieve, there's different tools that are going to be out there. We have the expertise within our organization to be able to pick those right tools and be able to implement them so they're most effective. So we don't actually utilize just one specific tool set. We don't want to pigeonhole ourselves to make sure that we can't provide you the best possible outcome. Now, we do have our own internal accelerators, like I talked about, and Siva mentioned, predictive QA, test case optimization bot, but those are all kind of highly dependent on artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities, and those require a lot of data and training to be able to make sure that they're effective. AI isn't a turnkey solution. It never has been, never will be. Think about Watson. It's just getting started to realize some of its value. So we have to still be able to be in there and be able to train the models. Now the SOW and the engagement may look a little different for those types of engagements, but nevertheless we can come together and determine the best way to provide you the best possible outcome.
Okay, I believe that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you all for submitting your questions. This was great. Be sure to check out and subscribe to DTV, the new digital transformation channel that brings in industry experts. The link is there. You can also use the bit.ly URL. Many thanks to our speakers, Andrew and Siva, and thank you everyone for joining us today. You will receive an email in the next 24 hours with a slide presentation and link to the webcast replay. If you have any questions, please contact us at info@infostretch.com or call us at 408-727-1100 to speak with a representative. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.